Welcome to our channel Echoes of the Dark, where we tell you real-life stories that don't just entertain you, they open your eyes. You ever stumble across something so creepy, so unexplainable, it just sticks in your head and refuses to leave? Well, imagine digging up an ancient skull and finding rusty iron nails hammered straight into the bone. Yeah, that's not a horror movie scene. That's real. And the story behind why someone did this, it's way darker than you think. So picture this. You're walking across some quiet field, maybe in Eastern Europe or somewhere that feels like time just froze. Archaeologists are there doing their thing, dusting off dirt, carefully pulling fragments from the earth, when one of them lifts up this skull. At first it looks like any old relic from a grave. But then they notice the punctures. Not just cracks, not accidents, clean, deliberate holes, and sticking out, actual corroded nails. Someone hundreds of years ago hammered these into a human head. Now pause for a second. Why in the world would anyone do that? It's not like people were practicing home improvement on a corpse. This wasn't random vandalism. This was ritual, a punishment, maybe even fear. And that's the part that messes with your brain, because it tells you the living were scared of the dead. Think about it. What makes you pound nails into a skull unless you're terrified that person might come back? This wasn't just a burial, this was an execution that extended into the afterlife. Archaeologists started digging deeper, both literally and historically. And what they found paints a terrifying picture of how ancient people viewed death, evil, and the supernatural. See, in certain villages, if someone was accused of being a witch, a sorcerer, or even just different from the rest, they weren't only punished in life. Their bodies were tampered with after death, cut, chained, mutilated. Why? Because people genuinely believed the corpse could rise again and haunt the living. Yeah, sounds like a zombie flick, but to them, it was real life. One wrong step, one wrong curse, and your neighbor wasn't just buried and gone. They might claw their way back. And the nails, they were like insurance, primitive locks. Keep the spirit in the ground, trapped forever. Now here's where it gets creepy. You know that saying, a dead and buried? Well, back then they weren't so sure. They had legends, folk tales, whispers around campfires about spirits returning, roaming fields at night, draining the life out of crops and livestock, sometimes even out of people. Imagine living with that fear every single day, not knowing if the guy who just died might be showing up at your door tomorrow night. So when archaeologists pulled that skull out of the dirt, it wasn't just bones. It was evidence of paranoia, a physical story written in iron and bone. This wasn't one isolated case either. Similar burials have been uncovered across Europe, some with rocks shoved into mouths, some with bones twisted unnaturally, some with bodies pinned down under heavy stones. And every time it screams the same thing: the living didn't trust the dead. Let me tell you about one case in Bulgaria. A skeleton was found with an iron rod stabbed straight through the chest, like literally pinned into the earth. Villagers back then believed this man was a vampire. They didn't mean a Twilight character. They meant a restless spirit that rises to suck the energy out of the living. So to stop him, they staked him down like a tent pole. The skull with nails. Same vibe, different technique. The goal was the same: trap the soul. And here's the part that really makes your skin crawl. This wasn't thousands of years ago. We're talking medieval times. Not really that long. Some places were still practicing this stuff just a few centuries back. Which means your great-great-great-great-grandparents' neighbors might have been doing it. Now think about what that says about human nature. We talk about progress, science, technology, but deep down, fear hasn't changed much. People still freak out over things they can't explain. They still turn to rituals, superstitions, charms, or even violence when they feel powerless. So when you see a skull with nails, it's not just an old relic. It's a mirror. It shows how fragile the human mind is when fear takes over. How belief can twist into cruelty. How communities can decide someone's fate not based on facts, but on whispers. And that makes you wonder, what were they so scared of in this specific case? Who was this person? Was he a criminal? A healer accused of dark magic? Maybe someone who died suddenly and mysteriously, and the villagers thought, nope, not taking any chances. The truth is, we'll probably never know. And maybe that's the scariest part, that blank space where imagination fills in the gaps. Because here's where it hits home. Today we like to think we'd never do something like that. But have you ever seen how people treat someone when they're labeled different? How quickly a community can turn? Cancel culture online, mob mentality, rumors spreading. It's the same cycle, just with hashtags instead of hammers. Back then it was nails through a skull. Today, it's digital nails through someone's reputation. Different tools, same fear. And maybe that's why stories like this haunt us. They're not just about the dead. They're about us, the living, and how easily fear can drive us to do unspeakable things. That skull in the dirt is a warning sign that even in modern times, we're never as far from superstition as we think. Now, if you're still watching right now, you probably feel that shiver crawling up your spine. Maybe you're picturing those nails, rusted and jagged, still biting into the bone after all these centuries. Maybe you're thinking about that person, whoever they were, laying in the ground, trapped by fear even after death. And if that image sticks in your head tonight when you try to fall asleep, you're not alone. Because that's exactly what makes this story so haunting. It refuses to stay buried. So here's my question for you. If you found a skull like that, if you were standing in that field holding it in your hands, what would you feel? Curiosity? Pity? Fear? Drop your answer in the comments. I want to know if you'd see that as just history, or as a reminder of how thin the line is between us and the people who lived in fear centuries ago. And hey, if stories like this hit you as hard as they hit me, make sure you stick around. Hit that subscribe button. Turn on notifications, because we go deep into the dark. The mysterious, the forgotten pieces of history that are way scarier than any ghost story. And remember, sometimes the scariest monsters aren't the ones hiding under the bed. They're the ones buried in the ground with nails through their skull.